Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Liang, and I'm a facilitator and coach at the career acceleration community called Sidebar. And we have different circles where people come in and talk about their challenges and figure out how to improve their craft. I've been a facilitator at Sidebar for 2 years, a member for 3 years, doing executive coaching as well. And I also am a director of product at an AI software company that does anomaly detection for satellite data and spacecraft operations. And so this is such an exciting conversation to be a part of today. So what we have here to kind of give you a little flavor of some of the wonderful kind of discussions that help push our thinking and knowledge at Sidebar is that we have curated a group of 5 of our most esteemed members who have a ton of expertise in AI, and we're going to have them run a small discussion here and learn about it. And so, well, just a little bit of housekeeping here. We will, they're being spotlit right now. We're going to have a little roundtable discussion in 2 rounds. These are short personal shares and perhaps a little bit of productive friction, and we want to end with clear takeaways. So the discussion prompt we're going to have is, in product management, what's one decision you won't let AI make today and why? And I'm going to paste the order. So first, here's our question today. And then I'm going to paste who's going to share the order in chat. And we'll do 2 rounds. And the first round, I'll ask you to do a quick introduction of yourself so we know who you are, how to pronounce your name, and then share what your perspective is on this. No crosstalk yet. And then once everybody has done their 90-minute soapbox, then we'll go to round 2 and open it up. We'll want you to name what resonated. And then especially if there's something that you disagree with, please go ahead and share. And we'll start giving the audience a flavor of what our sidebar circles are and all of the nuance and wonder that we can get in this. Sound good? Everybody clear on the process? All right, wonderful. So I'm going to put order of shares in the chat, starting with Rahul. And if you want to just do a quick intro of yourself, who you are, and in product management, what's one decision you won't let AI make today and why? Go ahead.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me here, Jenny. And nice to meet everyone. I do know Kia and Jason, so excited to be back here on with them. Our circles can be crazy, but I think what I do, I'm the Chief Product Officer of Rocket.new. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's into vibe coding, and there's some interesting stuff that we are ready to announce in a couple of weeks. So more to come there. I've been a product person all my life. I've dabbled in the dark arts of engineering for a couple of years, and I've been a designer for about 6 months. So I guess product is a sweet spot. I guess 12 years at Walmart. Before then, in startups, might have heard of Flipkart back from India. So that's the background. Gosh, like what would I not let AI do in the world where AI can do pretty much everything? I think the one thing that it cannot do, I think, is stand in for intuition, judgment, and taste. I think Marilee sort of mentioned it in her talk, so it's nothing new. But if you go back to first principles, it's looking at everything that is available to it right now, which has already happened. So in a way, it's sort of making history super easy, for us to sort of like easily aggregate. But it is not still a great thinker. It is not still a great predictor of the future. I think humans still are. So our taste, our choices based on values that we stand for, our organizations stand for, I think it's still going to shape the future, but AI can accelerate that thinking a whole lot based on what Marilee just showed. So that would be my answer. Taste, intuition, judgment, I think is going to be all the more important, not less going forward.
Thank you. Over to you, Louis.
Great. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. I'm Louis Moynihan. I am a dual founder. One business is I'm also ex WhatsApp, and one business is called Coral Messaging. I'm co-founder and chief product officer. early stage startup building AI agents on top of a brand new feature from WhatsApp called WhatsApp Groups API. So think of business groups between buyers and sellers with AI agents helping the seller and the sales manager. And the second business is messaging advisory, helps clients like Toyotas of the world move from one-way SMS to two-way RCS using Google's new protocol RCS, which of course needs bots and AI agents, and the same on Apple Business Chat and of course WhatsApp for North American brands. So I dabble a lot in AI for personal use, professional use, and build products as well. It's a really interesting question. It's a very hard question to answer. And I don't think there's a succinct answer that I can come up with. But I think one way of answering it is what do I use AI for in my product management function? And I think the answer is very easy. It's anything repetitive. Anything that's repetitive. And the demo we saw earlier, you could see that those repetitive tasks AI can help with. But when it comes to making a judgment call, which is not repetitive, and I'll give you an example, and I just had this morning. We changed our roadmap priority this morning. That is not, yeah, you could say it's a repetitive task, but not really, because when you change your roadmap every, let's say, month, you're doing so because of changes in the engineering cadence of what we're working on, or perhaps different feedback from the customer base. And so in that respect, it is not repetitive. And you have to take all these variables from the real world that is not repetitive, and you have to make a human call. And so I think product roadmap change is a great example.
Supriya.
Thanks for that response, Louis. My name is Supriya. I am also a dual founder, not unlike Louis. I am the CEO and founder of a company called The Agency, and it is a personal executive ghostwriter that leverages AI. And then I also do advisory on the side focused on product strategy, living at actually the intersection of largely this question. Where and how do you apply AI, and what judgment do you need to apply to make the most out of AI-driven products? So to answer the question, definitely agree with what's been said so far. One lens that I like to look at this is think about what are decisions that are going to require tacit knowledge. So things that you experience, things that you don't necessarily write down, even things like emotions. So how do you react to something? And you're codifying those signals in your brain, but it's not necessarily something you're articulating or relaying in language. And a lot of times those are the things that underpin your ability to have this taste, judgment, intuition. So for me, a great example, aside from road mapping, which is very real, also just like final UX polish on different flows and use cases on how people use a product. So the product that I'm building, this Ghostwriter, it's a non-standard way of doing that workflow. And so I learn a lot from talking to different types of people through their different use cases. And traditional wisdom might recommend a UX that flows in a certain way, but I actually find that for my specific use case, because it is so unique and sort of a unique way of doing things, that actually end up making different decisions than what probably the average of the internet would suggest. And that ends up working better for my customers. So, polish would be one area that that I like to focus on, as not AI, as actually human driven.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kia. I lead engineering at a VC called 50 Years. We're focused on seed and pre-seed, deep tech primarily. And I use AI for almost everything in my job. But I wear the builder hat, so I'm sort of a PM archetype. And so I use literally AI for everything. So extracting insights from customer feedback, trends, any summarization of user feedback, anything that I need to get 70% of the way there, maybe sometimes 60% of the way there with little effort, I'll leverage LLMs or tools for. So rapid prototypes, quick PRDs. Last week, I generated 2 different PRDs and then had a third agent critique them both and pick the best one. And so spinning up these repetitive tasks, like Louis mentioned, are great uses for these tools. But to get to that 100% or that finalized product stage, you really need unique human expertise that we as experts in our fields provide. So leveraging a fleet of these tools to do the repetitive, boring things, and then taking them to the level of polish that's expected by our users is probably the best use case. Yeah, it's quite fun not having to do the boring things that we were doing before.
Gorgeous. Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So I've been in doing AI for about 10 years. So I was sort of OG before Gen AI came along. So as Apple, I did my own AI startup, was at AWS AI. And then right now I've co-founded a consulting group called Silicon Valley Intelligence Group, and we're working with Fortune 500 companies. And then on the other side, my other gig is I'm an advisor at StartX, which is a Stanford incubator, which is the incubator I took my startup through 10 years ago. So kind of getting to see big company AI problems, small company AI innovation overall, and really enjoying that mix. But product background sort of all the way threaded through consumer and enterprise. When I think about things that when I think about AI and things that I wouldn't outsource to AI, customer relationships are top of the stack. You cannot outsource those things. You sometimes can outsource like interviewing 1,000 people if you want to use a tool for that. You really can't outsource relationships, and that's one thing AI is just not going to be able to touch. And some of the reason for that as a product manager is you can't outsource prioritizing customer problems. You cannot outsource having empathy for those customer problems. And if you think you can with AI, you're wrong, or you're underperforming what you could be doing overall. I'm also going to throw out something that maybe a lot of people are going to disagree with, which is writing. I think you have to be really careful when you use AI to write, especially your first draft. The author, Joan Didion, had this great quote, which was, I don't know what I think until I write it down. And there's another one out there, which is, if you're thinking without writing, you just think you're thinking. And for me, and I think for many people, and I come from Amazon, which is a writing culture, if you don't write your first draft, you're really shortchanging your thinking. You are not going to be as original overall. And if you let AI do the first draft, it sort of warps your thinking. Like you're like, oh, maybe that is right. And then you sort of short circuit some of the original thinking you do. AI is not very creative when it comes to ideas. And you probably see if you've ever tried to get AI to give you a snappy name for a company, like it's not very good. I think AI is a great editor, and I think AI is a great tool to give you feedback overall. But I see a lot of people who outsource AI to write the first draft. I can tell immediately when people do that, and I discount it overall. And I usually throw it out the window and I come back and have a conversation with my PMs or my founders about the problems, and don't let them lean on AI for the first draft. I think it's very useful for the second draft or putting together market research to sort of back that up.
Jason, it's so satisfying seeing a lot of thumbs ups and response. Thank you all for your responses. We're also seeing some great comments in the chat. David Conquest saying anything with regulatory risk, like accounting, medical, that needs a certifiable professional to take on that risk. Assad is talking about how AI can't be aware of every context and situation, and making sure we add those inputs. And I'm seeing definitely some themes around judgment, discernment, tacit knowledge, polish, and empathy, and then creative thinking, like you said, Jason. So this is such a great baseline and so much knowledge so quickly. Let's move on to round two. We're going to go the opposite order, starting with Jason now. And what I'd love to hear from you all is, if there's any other things that are kind of resonating with you, and more interestingly, if you're feeling tension, where are you disagreeing and where are the limits of some of the things you're saying? I'll give that over to you, Jason, and
Sure.
then please keep those comments coming in the chat. They're great.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great question. So I'm talking to a lot of people right now around the transition we're going through with AI, which, is sort of first generation Gen AI, which in some ways is sort of like a glorified autocorrect or, autocomplete, right? It's, you ask a question, it gives you an answer. It's right or it's wrong. Usually it's pretty close to being right, unless it hallucinates. But with agentic, we're moving into sort of a new era, and we're all sort of frantically building these things and learning about them. At a high level, what I would say are two interesting things. One is, model evaluation is difficult, and it's sort of a learned skill. You can't outsource that to AI. Like another AI has a hard time doing model evaluation because the result is qualitative, honestly. I think the other piece is from a leadership perspective, like we're living in a time of great change, and AI entities are going to be working alongside human entities. And as leaders, we need to figure out how that all works. And we're very early in that. But I think we should be intentional when we design our AI agents and think about how people will use this, because you don't want to cut people out.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, and thanks, Jenny. I think I agree and disagree with Jason's premise that we should do the first version ourselves. I agree. These models are autoregressive, so every time you're interacting with one, it's like a blank slate. And by default, those blank slates are 50% the average. The average doesn't get the exceptional results that we expect in our industry. But through context tuning and active effort, I think you can get these models to a significantly better place. So practices like RAG or Graph RAG or really just even GPT projects can get you a lot closer to a more effective first draft than just outsourcing your thinking to ChatGPT, which is a really great model. And I guess the other kind of controversial thing that is popping up a lot for me is I advise a lot of portfolio companies. Some senior leaders want to mandate use of these tools, and I found that that's a failure pattern in that if you don't allow these things to bubble up kind of grassroots, adoption usually fails in early stage companies. And so yeah, that's just another word of caution. Don't force feed AI or Gen AI on your team. You can be a great example and show how you're using things. But when it's presented in kind of like as like a doctrine, you may get a pushback from your employees.
Supriya.
Just echoing a little bit of Jason and Kia on the note of writing. I'm working on a product that helps people with some of their writing. And actually, the interesting thing is the conflation of the act of writing to communicate versus the act of writing to think. And I think those are two actually different tasks that people often conflate. And I find that thinking, if you want to leverage something like AI as a co-pilot, makes a lot of sense. If you want to leverage AI like a automation tool for your thinking, you're likely to be disappointed because maybe a little bit going back to my note on the tacit knowledge, right? You have a lot of stuff in your head, that a lot of signals, a lot more than the AI is going to have. The AI has the average of the internet. You have your unique lived experience that you're trying to process. And so like shortchanging yourself from that opportunity to like actually articulate your own unique perspectives and thoughts is actually shortchanging the outcome of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's executive ghostwriting or something else. Versus like AI could, if treated well, could help you with some packaging tasks, but it is also not very creative out of the box. A lot of that inspiration is actually going to come from you. So that I feel like that's an interesting trade-off. I'll add one other one to the mix, which is just the notion of AI slop. So I find that I try to use AI sometimes and it actually adds more time than I could have done it myself. So a lot of times people think AI makes you go faster, but sometimes AI actually makes you go slower if you don't know what you're doing. So a little bit of a related point, but just something to keep in mind. If you're finding that you're one of those people, you're not alone. It kind of happens to all of us. And so sometimes it takes some trial and error. And I think that's a little bit of why sometimes, when managers try to tell their employees, like, you got to use AI. And a lot of that resistance is because maybe they tried and maybe they're getting low quality output, or it's just actually taking them longer than they would do it for themselves. So the ROI needs to be there if you're going to use AI. That's the other tension I see a lot.
Great. Louis.
Yeah, great question. I think I'm going to use the time to attempt to articulate a fear I have. So as you can see, I'm kind of an AI first person in my function as well as building product with AI agents. But I have a fear, and the fear is students coming out of universities in North America, I think I think they're in a great spot if they can do what we're doing, which is finding ways to use these new tools. And I am not fearful of their prospects. I am very bullish on their prospects. I am very fearful of mid-stage career people to senior people in their careers. If they do not start using tools to improve their job function, whatever their job function is, they're going to get passed out within 18 months. And I think the unemployment rates in North America are going to get hit hard in the next couple of years. And it's a whole new paradigm shift. I tend to be an early adopter, so I'm good with this on a personal level. But not everyone is that way. And I don't know. I think some of these academies and these discussions, it's important to point out that to start adopting tools that help your job function and help with your own KPIs, rather than worrying about which tool to use or the implications of it, or if you should or shouldn't. I just think there's an urgency for our economy and for the health of our society to bring as many people along as we can, because I think the risk is quite high.
Regis. Rahul.
Gosh, it's harder going first and it's harder. I thought it'd be easier going last. It's not actually. It was fun listening to every single person. Like, I'm not going to talk more about writing. I think the team has spoken about it. Like, I'm in the camp of like, gosh, like if you don't write your first draft yourself, like, God help you kind of thing. Because that's a PM. But again, it depends on what you're writing. Like if you're writing some random stuff that is repeatable, like you'll probably get away from that, right? Like I used to hate creating tickets myself anyway as a PM. But if you're writing creatively, like you're thinking about ideating, probably good to sort of think through from first principles, and then have AI back it up, like dress it up, if you will. And I'm increasingly finding that people are spending a lot of time, Supriya, like trying to make it look as if it has not been edited by AI. And I'm like, oh gosh, like, what world are we living in now? But I think my my thought is really to maybe leave this audience with an analogy. And I keep talking about it with my teams, like as context, right? Like I have a team of six, two humans, four agents. And I have to keep sharing this context because it's insane. And two of those agents out of the four are shared across the organization. Um, it's weird stuff, guys. Like, and we can talk about it later. Like, I'm just, I don't know what I'm saying sometimes, but um, the thought process that I have is AI is a tool, like as many of you have mentioned. I think it has improved the average intelligence of the humankind, and average being the key word, right? Because it depends on how we use it, depends on what context we actually apply it in, and how, innovative we are, right? I actually go all the way back to our cave person days, like where we discovered fire. Fire was a tool, still is a tool, right? Now, people who can cook using fire probably are having tastier food. I probably don't think, a lot of us consume raw stuff anymore because it's both probably not very tasty and unsafe, right? So we have now, as a human race, figured out how to use fire, to eat better, eat healthier, eat tastier food. Just one application of that tool, right? Do we see people still not doing that? I think probably not, right? So over a period of time, I actually don't think all PMs will become AI PMs. PMs will remain PMs. AI will just be one more repository, like, tool in the repository, which I think people are going to get very fluent with, and they should, right? So that's my hypothesis. But where I'm going with this is the tension, I think, is coming from, I guess, a lot of senior people in a lot of large organizations, like, just mandating, let's go do stuff without actually having a deep debate and a discussion about, like, what are we even trying to solve? Why are we here, right? And, every tool is going to expedite what we do, but you don't want to run really fast, off a cliff, right? Like, so that direction, that clarity, that strategy, that empathy that you have for your customers, and hence, like, you're uniquely positioned to lead that relationship, which I think was covered in this conversation, is all going to become fantastic if you don't abdicate your responsibility as a PM, as a founder, as a leader, and then use AI to augment it, I think, right? So, um, gosh, like, I mean, there's so many analogies out there. Like, you can pick any of them. I like the fire one personally because I think I came up with it, but I'm sure I was inspired by someone in some other conversation. So I'm just going to take credit for it. But the other one that I really like is what Neil deGrasse Tyson mentions in his podcast, which is the advent of an automobile, where, like, everything changed overnight, right? But it took time to catch up. But, industries went away, around, like, training horses, building carts, building wheels, and then suddenly, like, industries sprung up around mechanics, around automobiles, around repair shops, around paint shops, around, like, people, trying to become drivers. And now with, I think, I guess, I don't know who mentioned it in the talk, like Merrily mentioned about Tesla. Like, it's a great use. I drive a Tesla. It's crazy what you can do with a Tesla. Um, but, today, like, for example, there's human control, right? Like, when the AI doesn't know what to do, like, you can take control and you can sort of do this. Like, now imagine someone who's just starting their life, through not learning how to drive, right? How can they take control of the AI? Like, they cannot. And that's why the only piece of tension is what Luis mentioned. Like, I do worry about the crop that is graduating right now, not because they're not equipped, not because they are not smart, not because they don't have the right tools at their disposal. It's because I hope they all go through the first principles training that I think is still required to think, to write, to learn to solve problems the way I think some of us have had the fortune of doing so. And if they do that, I think they are way better equipped than some of all of us, like, who are trying to catch up to this technology, to lose point. But if they don't do that, then I think they might fall behind, right? Because they don't know then how to take control of the situation when something is just average. Gosh, that was a long monologue, longer than I anticipated, but I'm going to pause and see if there are questions.
Yeah. There's a
Lou-
great debate point there, actually.
All right, go ahead, Lewis, and then we'll wrap up with insights.
Maybe for another webinar, but are students coming out of college at a disadvantage or an advantage? And I would say there's arguments on both sides, but it's what they're coming into. Are they coming into a dot-com bubble that is, like a dot-com bubble where the economy is growing at such a high rate that they learn how to swim and everything's cool? Or are they coming into post-bubble burst where the economy is cratering and they're left behind? So I think that's a great point of debate.
Go ahead, Kia.
Yeah, I think there's two. I'm also conflicted about this, like thinking about like the hard-earned skills of a junior engineer or a junior PM. Those are the same skills that are really easy to fake with LLMs right now. And then getting to that next level, again, it's iteration, it's writing your own copy, it's debugging the tricky issue. And I wonder if we need to be very intentional about training our junior employees, because those skills don't come for free, and the models can't get you there. And so if we get hooked on the dopamine hit of instant generation of slop or something, it becomes really difficult to put in the hard work to get yourself to where you need to be. So yeah, definitely a double-edged sword, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the next few years.
Thank you. And want to call out Assad's comment on providing the correct context or staying out of the bubble. And then GP made an interesting comment in the chat about behavior change and journeyman with senior managers. So love this. So I want to leave just a couple minutes for Brennan at the end. So we'll start closing this out. I want to know what your key insights you're taking away with you from today's conversation. Well, what's something new that you didn't think of before that you're getting from this? And we'll do this popcorn style on our panel of esteemed guests today. So somebody could say their insight first, and then pick the next person. And I invite you all in the chat to put your insight. Let's crystallize this learning. What are we taking away? And first person on the panel, please go ahead and share.
Is that me? Okay, I'll just go. I think it just reinforces a lot of stuff that we've been trying on our side of the world. I think Supriya's point on empathy, Jason's point on like think through first principles, like don't outsource certain things. What Louis and Kia were saying, I think it just reinforces a lot of, I guess, what we're all trying to grapple with. But also, I think shines a spotlight on there are certain things that we can't just not do, right? Like whether it's learning to code using first principles if you're an engineer, like learning to think and ideate creatively if you're a PM, being close to your customers, etc. So I think it's going to help us think through like how do we onboard people, what skills do we want to impart, and hopefully someone listening who's close to education, that worries me the most, which is it's less about people graduating. It's about what are they going through before they actually graduate in schools and colleges. So hopefully someone is listening and maybe like figuring out like what training is required, what education is required when people graduate in this new world, which I don't think we ever had to worry about like in the last 10 years. All right, I'm going to popcorn it to Kia.
Yeah, I think my key takeaways, we're all really figuring out patterns that work and don't work, and there are no answers. It reinforces my idea that like mandates are bad in general. Um, and frankly, it's a scary and exciting time where I think we all see the value of these tools right now, and it's just experimentation and adaptation that's going to help us as senior leaders evolve, and the kind of workforce in general will also benefit from that same experimentation adaptation. So a period of rapid change, exciting, lots of potential. It's going to be a lot of fun the next few years.
Thank you. Who's next, Kia?
Ooh, Supriya, you're up.
Thanks, Gia. Yeah, I agree with this sentiment of you both. Of a lot of this conversation sort of reinforced some of my personal observations of how people are leveraging these tools and evolving. I think just like there are no easy answers here. But I think the big takeaways for me are like humans need to stay in the equation for quite a bit longer. All jobs are not disappearing next year, at least. We're good for a little while. In fact, we would be remiss to not ensure that the next generation of leaders that are going to grow into our shoes over time are well equipped to do so. Because personally, I think that human ingenuity should always stay at the forefront of technology, and that's what's going to push us forward as a human race. I know that that's a controversial point of view, but I think this conversation for me sort of reinforced that point of view, at least for quite some time longer.
Gorgeous. And do you want to hear from Jason or Louis?
Let's go to Jason.
All right. Yeah, I think we're hearing a lot of threads here around like leadership in the age of AI, and like being an example versus sort of top-down mandates. I think is really important. The way we use AI might not be the way the rest of our team should be using AI, and I definitely learn all the time in terms of the way I see other people use AI. So I think just because you're senior doesn't mean you really know the best way to use AI. And I think that's a key piece of leadership. I think the other piece is like just having some empathy for the fear that's out there and sort of the anxiety. It's a time of, it is a time of great change. We're touching on education and how to think and how to write. Uh, spend most of my time with people who were CS undergrad. I was philosophy and Mandarin, double major, and I used to really get razzed about that. They're like, are you in the wrong job? And now a lot of those people are coming back to me and saying, what is a liberal arts education? One of the things I come back to since I've worked at Apple is Steve would always say, Apple's at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. You could call that taste or other things, but as leaders, we got to keep reading, we got to keep writing, and stay in touch with the technology because I think that's kind of where the magic happens.
Louis.
Yeah, just like most sidebar circles, I feel pretty confident coming into a sidebar circle with a certain topic. Not quite sure how I'm going to articulate it, but through the help of the sidebar members, we collectively start to articulate something, and I become more clear in it. So I appreciate everyone's opinions and diverse experience. And I think this discussion was the same. Something maybe I learned, I've heard the narrative of what are students going to do when they come out of college. They're not going to have the experience, and we've heard that in the industry. And I've had the opposite fear. I think, and Rahul, you definitely helped me understand two sides to that coin. But I also learned that as leaders and as job function leaders, we should strive for excellence in our function, and regardless of what tools we're using. And I should probably have more empathy for all employees and not just one type, because there is a ton of anxiety regardless of where you are on that adoption curve. And great discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.